Welcome to the second episode of the Kime Zone. This is the BA martial artist coming at you. Kime means focus in Japanese. I developed the Kime Zone as a place where we can connect to focus, discover, obtain our zen, vitality, and centering through self-development topics. Today's episode is all around ignoring the boundaries. My special guest today is Edward Ngubanewas. A little bit about Edward. Edward is the current head of business analysis at DVT. He started his career as a mathematics teacher in Soweto, South Africa. He has been in the IT industry for almost 20 years and has worked for Telkom SA, Investec, BMW Financial Services, West Bank, and FNB. He has held numerous positions such as systems developer, systems analyst, business analyst, product development manager, business analyst manager, head of the project management office, practice lead over business analysis and architecture, and a practice manager. He has set up and ran business analysis community of practice, developed and mentored a number of business analysts, and published papers on the business analysis discipline. Over the years, he has received numerous awards and is passionate about the business analysis domain. A teacher at heart, he is also passionate about leadership, mentoring, and coaching. And in 2019, he received the Certificate of Competence in Leadership Coaching from WITS Business School. He holds 5 degrees, 2 of which are at the master's level. He's currently in his second year of his PhD and is a recipient of a postgraduate merit award for 2 years in a row. His thesis for his PhD is on cloud computing adoption and SMME development in South Africa. He's the former secretary and treasurer of the IIBA South Africa chapter and the current president of the same organization. So get ready to hear from Edward on how you can ignore the boundaries that could potentially stop you from reaching your fullest potential. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Kime Zone. I am here with my great friend and colleague, Edward, all the way from South Africa. Welcome, Edward. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Paula. Thank you for having me. And good evening. I don't know whether I should good evening or good morning to your viewers, because of the different time zones. But anyway, hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. So Edward, okay, so this is really bad. So I have never known how to pronounce your last name. So do you pronounce your last name Ngubanewas? Or am I like totally off?
You're almost there. It's Ngubane, but you almost got it. It's not that complicated.
Well, I figured I should ask.
Yeah. No, it's one of the easiest names to pronounce.
Right. Well, again, thank you for joining me all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. I had an opportunity to interact with you last year at the wonderful BA Summit in South Africa. That's how we met. And we became instant colleagues and friends from that encounter. And I've been following you on social media. And I saw that you had written this wonderful article around ignoring the boundaries. And it was really your personal story of some of the challenges you've overcome, your personal story on how you switched your career, your focus, all of that great stuff. And in the time we're in right now with the global pandemic, civil unrest, everything going on in 2020, I thought this was a great topic as a motivational and inspiring story to bring to my viewers. So I just wanted to have a little bit of a dialogue with you around this article you wrote and how it resonated with me, and definitely how your story was inspiring to me. So when I first read the article, Ignoring Boundaries, again, it definitely resonated with me. It was inspiring. I didn't know all of this about you, so that was great to find out of all the different paths you've taken. And as a life purpose coach, a certified life purpose coach now, I talk a lot about limiting beliefs and how we put sort of boundaries and beliefs on ourselves to limit us from achieving our ultimate purpose, ultimate goals in life. Clearly, you are quite accomplished and still accomplishing, and you have had some boundaries that were set before you, which I'm quite sure inspired the article. When did you realize that you had these potential boundaries and you really weren't where you wanted to be or really living in that true purpose of your life?
I think it's an interesting question, Paula, because the boundaries are some of the boundaries you can actually see physical boundaries. Some of the boundaries are actually mental or boundaries that are in your head or that are circumstantial. So it really depends on how you as a person react and position yourself. So, I mean, when I look back at my life over the years, I mean, probably when I was in high school, it started back in high school actually. Quite an interesting thing. When I was in high school, when I was doing my because for us here you have matric, which is a final year, but before matric, obviously the year before that, which is preparing you for your final year in high school. We didn't have a maths teacher. We actually had a maths teacher, but he was quite very weak, so to speak. He was teaching us maths and physics. So from that moment, I then realized that I think I was in a small class. We were about 20 in our class. And I was the youngest. I was actually 16, which was now I was in the matric class in 16. I completed high school when I was very, very. So I actually taught my class mathematics and physical science. So go in and read up on what needs to be done and then come to class and teach. As a result, I ended up teaching other classes. Now I was teaching other classes biology, which is another subject, which the other teacher said, you know what, maybe teach this. So out of that, that was a way of me now that I'm looking at it now, that's a way of me overcoming, the boundaries at that time, although I didn't realize that's what I was doing. So as a result, we ended up passing quite well, just a few of us, without this teacher, because the school is not there. We didn't feel sorry for ourselves. That's the first thing. So the issue about boundaries is you have to get rid of the victim mentality, the victim mindset. That I'm in this circumstance, I'm in this situation, I must feel sorry for myself, I must ask for pity. The minute you engage in that perspective of the pity party, people having to feel sorry for yourself, you're not going anywhere. It's as simple as that. You're just not going anywhere in life, because people will just feel pity and move on. So you need to take charge of the situation. So I did that. And I remember also after matric, because I had not planned to go to varsity, I didn't have proper plans. So I taught for a year at just the lower classes as a privately paid teacher. I was earning peanuts. But then I applied to go to varsity. So now when I went to varsity, which was a year after I completed matric, a very strange thing happened. I only had a specific amount of money, which was 800 rand. And that 800 rand was the money that I was going to pay to register. What I didn't realize was the varsity needed more money than that. I think at that time they needed probably 1,400 or something like that to register and to get accommodation, which I didn't have, but I went anyway. When I got there, miraculously, sometimes when you have to go and put yourself out there in the situations, then opportunities will come your way. It turned out that university in the previous year, they had made a mistake when they were sent out the brochures for people to come and register. They had also sent out by mistake a brochure with 800 rands. So fast forward, a lot of things, even when I was in my career as a teacher, I realized that I needed to get out of this. So I got out of the comfort zone and looked for opportunities while I was still teaching. And I actually took a salary cut. When the opportunity came my way, I earned half of what I was earning for a year. So what I'm saying in essence is, you have to ignore the boundaries, because if you let the boundaries limit you, limit your thinking, limit what you can achieve, you're not gonna go anywhere. So this is kind of just in very, very high level, kind of speaking to some of the instances where those physical boundaries or even those mental boundaries, I had to overcome them by saying to myself, I believe I can do this. So it comes with that belief. It comes with the ability to to get yourself out of this situation, no matter how difficult it might look like, or when there's no hope, to believe that you can get out of the situation as long as you know what you're capable of.
So you said a couple of great things there. So the first thing that really resonated with me is getting rid of the victim mentality or the pity party. So it's
Absolutely.
not about letting what other people have said about you control you or define you. It's what's within you that you bring forth no matter what comes your way. Don't look at it as a necessarily maybe a challenge, but more of an opportunity, and how you can seize that opportunity with your own belief within yourself to be able to achieve that. And you clearly did that. Not only did you believe, but you took a step of faith because you went out to this university not even knowing how you were going to pay for it because you did not have the money for it, to find out when you get there that they made a mistake anyway in the brochure. So if you would have had that victim mentality, or you would have let that stop you, you would have lost a great opportunity there that would have helped you on your journey. So you definitely get rid of the victim mentality. You believe in yourself. What other steps, or are there any additional steps that you have taken or you would recommend somebody to take who feel that they do have boundaries around them that they cannot break through?
I think it's important to understand that we are all on a journey, and our journeys are not the same. So I always think that people don't understand my journey, and they don't have to understand it because it's my journey. I have to own it. I understand my journey, and I understand that there's a purpose behind my existence. So my objective is to maximize the purpose that I have. You know, one of the things that I believe in is when a child is born, and I've looked at this thing, you know, when a child is born, you see when they, especially when they're just born, they come in with their hands clenched, you know, with their fingers clenched like this. To me, that's symbolic. It symbolizes that they're bringing something into the world. So what we need, we already have. When we are born, what we need, we already have. All that we need to do is to tap into it, just to believe in ourselves, to understand that my journey and Paula's journey are not the same, you know. And I need to understand what my journey is. I need to you know, dig deep within myself as a person, and make sure that I already have these talents. I just need to find them. And once I found my talents, then I just need to hone in on them, you know. So the problem is what I think most people struggle with. You look at Paula, you want to be like Paula. You can't. You know, you're on a different journey. You know, you come in with unique talent that you have. I've got, my talent is unique, and I understand it because I do a lot of self-introspection. So people, you need to learn self-introspection. You need to know what you're good at. You need to say, okay, fine, these are the things that I'm passionate about. These are the things that bring the best out of me as a person. And the things that pull you down, or the situations that pull you down, or the people that pull you down, identify and eliminate. And it is as simple as that. Identify and eliminate. Remove yourself from those situations, because if you don't, you are going to be dragged by those situations. Because remember, it links in again with that pity party. You think people are feeling pity for you, but they actually want to hold you back. So that, just human nature, I don't know why it happens, but it's human nature. People want to hold other people back, which is unfortunate. So you have to, as a person, realize that whatever you need, when you come in with it. What we do as we are alive is to keep on polishing it, is to keep on maximizing it, you know, our talents. And that's why when we get socialized, when you get into the system, when you get, whether it be the education system, whatever, it is just us trying to maximize what you already have. So people tend to look further or far away instead of looking inside themselves to realize that. That's why when a child is born, the fact that these hands are like this when they're born, to me, it's similar. I'm bringing something. I'm not just coming in. I'm bringing something. And even if you take that analogy further, look at the one, and I think I'm in a better position because I've got small babies, so I can even look at this. Because what they do is when they start engaging with the world, when they start, they use their hands. My little kids are using their hands, they're touching, they're feeling, they crawl, they grab them, the sense of, familiarizing themselves with the world. The very first sense is touching, 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 which means now, so we have what we need, but we are not using it. I'm instead of looking at what I have, I'm looking at what Paula has.
Very, very true. And that's a great analogy with the babies. And what a better way to have an analogy of when you come into this world. As a martial artist, one of the things we talk about is when we make our fists to do our temi, we have 5 tenets that we leverage. We leverage courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit. And all of those fingers represent one of those 5 tenets. So when you make that fist, that's the power that's coming behind it. So there's power in that, definitely power in that. And as you think of a baby, just like you did, when you come out, you're right. Because when my twins came out, that's how they came out, screaming and yelling, but their fingers were clenched, right? And so as you already are born with those things with inside of you, you just need to own them, identify them, and don't let other people hold you down. I love how you said identify and eliminate. In 2020, I've been eliminating a lot of people. I'm seeing a lot of true colors coming out of how individuals really think. And it's not serving a purpose. For me, it's not adding any value to my life. It's actually pulling away energy and draining me. And you've got to get rid of those sources that drain you. So I 100% agree with the identify and eliminate. I love that. I'll probably use that somewhere in the future. So you talked a little, so you talked a little bit about how you started your career as a teacher, and now you work for this wonderful company called DVT with business analysts and technical solutions. So from a teacher, so for all the business analysts out there who don't think you can move from one career to another, we have a living example right here. But can you first tell us a little bit about DVT? And second, when did you realize you wanted to pivot? You wanted that change in your career?
So DVT is a software development company. It's been around for over 20 years. We have just opened an office in the UK. So we're not only operating in South Africa, there's an office in the UK. It's part of a bigger group called DTH, Dynamic Technology Holdings. There's quite a number of sister companies within the group, but we focus primarily in developing solutions for our clients. So we do custom software development, but we also do professional services, which means we have consultants that we assign to our clients. They help the clients in business analysis, in development, Java, .NET, mobile applications. We also do UI, UX. We have a competence that does UI, UX. We have BI and data analytics. So there's quite a diverse set of skills that we have within this organization. It has at the moment about just under 500 employees. We used to have testing as a competency within the organization, but now testing is now part of a sister company called Inspired Testing. It's standalone. It's already present in the UK. So we went to UK with that competency first, followed by DVT. So within DVT, I head up a competency, business analysis competency. I've been with the company for 5 years now, going to 6 years, I think sometime in July next, somehow, maybe I'm 5 years and a half now. I have a team of about, it fluctuates because in consulting, but it's about 40 to 50 consultants, at any given time, spread across various clients. And I work with a colleague who helps me manage the team. Her name is Celicia. She's the team lead in the. You remember Celicia? You met her when you were here.
I love her.
Yeah, so Celicia works with me. Dynamic, energetic, you know her. Yeah. So that's DVT. So how then I did it? I made the transition from teaching to IT. And how I actually even got into teaching. Let me maybe start there. How I actually even got into teaching. Yes, because back then my ambitions, I wanted to be an engineer. Actually, I wanted to be a civil engineer because I love design. I love structure. Even now, when you look at the structures, I'm fascinated by structures. So that was my second option was being a pilot because I love the science behind flying. I just get fascinated every time. I think about flying. Well, the latest article that I've actually written in business analysis, I'm using the aeroplane wings as an analogy. So watch out for that article.
Okay.
It's out for publication now. So I love that. But remember when I said when I was in high school, the teacher wasn't that great. So I started teaching my classmates. And my biology teacher at one day he called me and said, "But what do you want to do?" I said to him, "No, I want to do civil engineering." He said to me, no. You actually should be a teacher. Your calling is in teaching, which is how I got into teaching. And even today, I'm still, as much as I'm doing analysis, but I'm always sharing knowledge with everyone. So I always joke to my colleagues to say, I left teaching, but teaching never left me. So that's how I got into teaching. But when I was at varsity, back then, because back then there were no computers in high school. So when I was at varsity, then I found out about this computer laboratory. There's, just the days of the DOS, you put in the DOS, you start up the machine and stuff. So I worked my way into the computer lab and I became the lab assistant. Although I was doing a degree in teaching, nothing to do, but I ended up being the lab assistant, helping other students come in. So that fascinated me in the world of IT. But then I was probably halfway into my degree in teaching. So when I was in teaching, now I kept looking, how do I get myself into IT? And again, by always being out there, looking for opportunities, I ended up joining a company that was offering a learnership program. That's how I actually got into teaching, into IT. Learnership program. I studied all over as a learner. And when I was there as a learner, I think I learned for a whole year. And then I got employed as a junior developer. During that time, that's when I also did studying because I did a lot of studying. So I switched over because I was already halfway. I was into my master's in teaching in mathematics education. I switched over. I started a completely new degree in information systems, become information systems. One of my colleagues, talking again about ignoring boundaries, one of my colleagues at that time looked at me and said, "You're crazy. You're already into your third degree. Why would you start a degree? A junior degree all over again, 6 years. It took me 6 years. Just, you crazy, this is just insane." I said, because again, go back to, your journey. Because don't expect someone to understand your journey. Because the problem is we look for affirmation from other people. But these people don't understand our path. So I'm going to give you affirmation, Paula, but the affirmation is, from my perspective, it's got nothing to do with your path, with your journey. And what happens, you end up derailing and getting. So when she tried to pull me back and discourage me, I said, I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince what I'm doing because I know I'm headed. So then I went into that. So I did that. But again, I've looked over the years and I've realized that I seem to have this cycle of reinventing myself every 6 years because I stayed in teaching for about 6 years. I stayed in software development for about 6 years. So I think after every 6 years, I start looking at what can I do. So I say, and I said this, I was giving a talk the other day to some of the PAs, one of the companies. I said, you must, as an individual, you must be in two phases, actually even more than two phases. There must be a phase, I call it the release cycles, because remember, I work in IT, we always talk about release cycles, but we never bring these things. I always like to use analogies. So we talk about release cycles, but we are alive. So I said, you must have, in your personal life, there must be stuff that's in testing phase, things that you're trying out. I'm trying this. There must be stuff that's in production phase. This is stuff that people know you for. This is what you do. It's in production. There must be stuff that's in development phase. The stuff that you're thinking, okay, but what else can I do to get to another level? You can't just everything of yours be in production phase, which is what happens. Then you find that the person is doing this thing for 20 years because they're in production, but they never split their time or their lives to say, okay, what else else should be in testing? What else am I trying? So this is how I constantly reinvent myself. So even when I was developing, so as a developer, I trained in COBOL. I developed in Delphi, which is a very nice language at that time. The drag and drop. We used to say we're coding behind the button because the form is there. Put the button, but then there was a change to go and code in SAP. So the department I was working for were introducing SAP, but I didn't like now starting all over again another language. So I said, you know what, my mind, I like to analyze things. So that's how I then said, let me see what else can I do that I'm passionate about. That's how I landed up in business analysis. Actually started off in systems analysis because back in those times, actually there wasn't a formally defined business analysis, system analysis careers as they are now. As a developer, you did almost everything. You went and sat with business. You went through the spreadsheet and understood, and then you just did your own design, and you developed and you tested with them. But I like that part. I like because there was a lot of engagement with business. So because of that, then and another thing, very interesting. I'll tell you a story. Sorry, I've got so many stories to tell. I'll tell you a story. Actually, now got into business. I had no clue what this business analysis was about. I remember sitting with one of my dear friends. To this day, I'm forever grateful. I always mention it. Her name is Koketo Muhapi, among others. I've got a lot of friends that have helped me along the way. So you need to identify the right people. In your journey, identify the right people, and you are intelligent enough. That's another thing, to detect when someone is actually not leading us in the right path. But for some reason, we tend to follow. So I then sat with her. I remember I was being interviewed for a junior BA position by one of the big banks in the country. I had no clue what this thing was about. And she was working as a process analyst for the Reserve Bank, for Receiver of Revenue, SARS, South African Receiver of Revenue. She dedicated her time. It must have been an hour and a half. She coached me. I absorbed as much as I could. That's another thing. You need to be open to learning. You need to raise your hand when you don't understand, when you don't know. And this is where it becomes problematic because people don't know, but they don't want to say they don't know. So if you don't know, it's okay. We all learn. We grow. So she coached me, and I went in this interview with everything that she'd coached me. What I'd done in the past for about 2 months, I just raised my hand within the organization, and anything that looks like a business analysis. Anything. No, we need someone to write this. I can do it. I'll do it. That's another thing. Raise your hand because people will not come to you if you don't raise your hand. You have to raise your hand and say, guys, I'm willing. I'm here. I am. I'm available. What do you want me to do? Because you can't. If you're not willing to do that, then that's it. So that's how then I got into business analysis. Very green. I remember one of the comments that it was quite hurtful at that time, but it was true. One of the systems analyst I was working with when I started, she said to my then manager, it was so green in business analysis. Because I didn't know what I was doing, but I was willing to learn. And I was hungry, and I was willing to put in the hours. I always say, it's very interesting how people want to succeed, but they're not willing to pay the school fees. So people just want to overnight, just succeed. You can't. You have to be willing to pay the school fees, and the school fees to success is putting in the hours, going that extra mile, being willing to start from the bottom, do all this petty stuff that, expose yourself, be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. People don't want to be vulnerable. When you don't know, you don't. And I remember I said to my boss, one of my bosses, I said, I reserve the right to be wrong because I don't know everything. So I reserve the right to be wrong, So, but if you feel that I can't be wrong, then it's your problem, not my problem. It's your problem. Because obviously I'm in the process of learning. So you can't be successful if you're not willing to go the extra mile. But people want, and what I also find strange and I've seen this over there, people just see you suddenly, this is Edward Ngubanewas, but they don't realize this journey didn't start now. this Ngubane journey started 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it's been consistent. So it's been consistent because I own the journey. So you need to own your journey, and you need to be consistent, and it needs to be patient. You need to be patient and just keep going. And when you do that, eventually things come your way. But you need to be willing to give something to get so that you can get something. Now, people don't want to give, and giving, it could be giving of your time, it could be sacrificing, all that those social settings that you should be going to, and then because you know where you're going. I used to, when I was a teacher, and I'm glad actually that was the best decision that I made to leave teaching. But when I was a teacher, after school, I would literally take my bag. At that time, I didn't even have a car. Take my bag, get into the taxi, go all the way to Wits University to do studying in the evenings because I was continuously studying. So I was continuous. And my colleagues, they would sit back and enjoy the time. And I think in their minds, I don't know whether people think you don't want to. You also want to be there to socialize with them, but you realize that time is of essence. For me, I look at time differently. I've got a different perspective of time. An hour is very, very important to me. So how I spend my hour, how I spend my 2 hours, I spend my 3 hours is very important. So I need to I hold myself accountable to myself in terms of how I spend my time. Not to you, so you need to be able to hold account, but to yourself.
Agreed.
So
yeah, that's great. You gave so much. You actually answered some of my future questions, but you gave so much in that. And everything you're saying is so true. Now, it was very creative how you took the release cycles and made that analogy to life. I love it. That was awesome. But, having the right people around you is very critical. I found that to be critical on my journey as well, is ensuring that the right people are around me who are there to add value to the journey that I'm going through. And like you had said earlier, some people are in your life for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And you don't want to mix up those seasonal people with lifetime expectations. You don't want to mix up the people who are there for a specific reason, for a season, because that can create distractions and take you off of your path. And another thing that you said that I found very interesting is around affirmations. Sometimes we want people to just affirm for us what we are supposed to be doing. And that's really not what we need because we already know what we're supposed to be doing. Sometimes we use those affirmations as a hindrance to stop us from doing what we want to do. Or sometimes that could be our own excuse for not going forward and doing what we want to do. So that was great stuff. And you also talked about the importance of raising your hand to let people know, I am available. I want to help. I'm willing to help. I may not know everything, but I'm here. I'm a willing vessel to be used. So use me. So that was great. That was great. And I also loved how you said that you have the right to preserve to be wrong. And I do create that environment as well with my teams. Is it's okay to fail because failure allows you you get knowledge, but it takes you one step further to success. Just fail fast. Let's just make our mistake, learn from it, and move on, right? Let's not stay there. Let's move on. So thinking about how you have reserved that right to be wrong, you did mention in your article that you have grown tenfold as a person and as a leader over the past 4 years, and DVT has helped you to do that. How has DVT helped you to grow tenfold over the last 4 years?
I think it's important to be in an environment that gives you freedom. firstly. So trust is quite important. Be trusted that you know what you're doing, you're good at it, and you have the support. So I'm very much fortunate to be in an organization activity where you make the best of your career based on taking the opportunities, because there aren't as many restrictions as you'd find in a proper corporate where there's hierarchy. You need to speak to that before you speak to that, and there's a whole lot of that approval cycle. So DVT is quite relatively flatter compared to other organizations, and which means you are given the responsibility to run with your space. Now you need to take ownership of that. So because this is a two-way street, you're giving responsibility, but it doesn't help again if you get given responsibility, then you shy away from it. So you need to also own it and make whatever the most out of it. So TVT gave me the platform. Let me just be honest with you, it gave me a platform. So this is your competency. Do what you want to do about the competency. Make what you want to do. You are the expert in this space. And because of that, that allowed me to try various things to grow the business, to double the team size and the revenue within the business. It wouldn't have happened if my boss, who's Melanie French, a very, very good lady again that I work with, if she didn't give me that platform. So, and it's a culture of the organization that you own your space, you do what you need to do. Just to make that part of your competency or part of the business work. And if you need support, there's support, which is a nice thing as well. If I go to Milan and say, Milan, you know what? I think we need to do this to take the BA competency to another level. So just effort. If you think it's going to work, let's try it out. And guess what? It works. So if it was another organization or working with different leadership, I don't think I would be where I am. I mean, coupled with that, then there's also the IBA South Africa chapter that I'm involved in heavily. That on its own, another organization would have kind of restrained me to say, you know what, we think maybe your involvement with the chapter is also taking your time, nothing like that. And that also has allowed me to grow as a person in my career, both in both spheres, both within IBA South Africa and within DVT, because of working for a company like DVT. So it's been a huge. I don't think if I look back, I don't think I would be where I am. I probably would have grown because, I wouldn't necessarily badmouth my previous organizations. I grew. How I put it, I say I grew in different directions. So in my previous organization, I grew, I learned a lot. I was also given a platform, but within constraints as well. Obviously, you can understand big organizations have to have some form of governance. So that comes in with its own pros and cons. So, but I grew. But I think being a DVT, kind of fast-tracked that growth extremely, which I don't think would have happened if I didn't join the organization. So it's been a good 5 years.
Oh, you're coming up on 6 years, and that's when you start making changes. So it'll be interesting to see where you go.
But remember, I'm doing my PhD in small business development using cloud computing, which has got nothing to do with what I'm doing now. You remember when I said to you, you need to be in different phases of your life, in your career. There's production, there's testing, there's development. So when I went into this PhD and I showed small businesses, my supervisor said, why small business? Why don't you stick to IT? Because I'm an IT person. And then he advised, maybe merge the two. That's how then I'm bringing the cloud computing aspect, but looking into small business. I don't know. Someone asked me, why are you doing the PhD? Said, I'm doing it because a friend of mine, another good lady, Mutiba Muhapi, I was studying with her at Wits. I always mention these people because, these are people that contribute positively in your life. And as you move on, you need to acknowledge people that help you get somewhere. And I always remain forever grateful to them. So she actually was the one that says, you know what, you can do this thing. You've got what it takes to do it. And so I do it. So someone asked me, so why? I said, I don't know. I'm just going to see where this thing is taking me to. I'm going with the flow. honestly, I'm just going with the flow. Where it's taking me, that's where I'm going. Because I'm on a journey, and I believe that the opportunities as they come your way, and opportunities come only once, you must grab them. So I don't know what's the next phase, but definitely there's various aspects to my life, production, development, testing, everything happening at the same time, you know.
Well, I'm glad I know you so I can watch you and see what you're doing, and who knows, we might collaborate on something in the future. So I am happy to know you and to have met you. You're definitely an inspiration, and you've given us so much great information today. But to wrap it up, if you had to give one piece of advice to others who might be struggling with this concept of ignoring the boundaries, they have these boundaries in their life and they are struggling with it. Now, you gave us a lot of great information, but is there one piece of advice that has been that piece of advice that has helped you every single time this may have crept up in your mind or just snuck upon you as you go through your journey? What would that piece of advice be?
Absolutely. What I can say, which is what I live, so my motto is we do suffer setbacks in life. Otherwise, we wouldn't be alive if we don't suffer setbacks. But one of the things that I always encourage people to do, time box the setback. Time box it. It's okay to feel, I'm not on top of my game. Things are not going the way I want them to go. There's a lot of things that are just taking me in all sorts of directions. But be aware of those and time box them and give yourself literally time to say, in 3 days' time or in a week's time, I want to get out of this thing. So because if you don't time box those things, what happens is to slowly drag you deeper and deeper into a situation where you end up, you don't know how to get out of that situation. So it's important that whatever difficulty that you're facing, whatever doubts, whatever challenges, whatever things get thrown into you, life throws things at us. I mean, things that just come out of the way, just they clap us. And it's okay, we acknowledge that because we're human, because we're feelings, because of emotions. But we should not sit in that space for too long. And that is where it has to be a conscious decision that you make, the power of the mind. I was telling my son the other day that the most powerful thing that we have is not our physical bodies. The most powerful thing that we have is the mind. Because if you take control of your mind, if you feed it with good things, if you make sure that, you'll be so surprised how much more you can achieve. Those boundaries, you'll be able to ignore it because you see them for what they are. You see them that these are just boundaries, but I'm going to overcome them. And watch me. I always, for me, whenever something like this happens, something negative comes my way and happens to me, for me, it's like it's fueling me. It's adding. It's like you're giving me more fuel to run even faster. And out of that, so I turn it around and I say, you know what? Out of this, you haven't seen the other part of me. There's yet more to see. So that's what I would say, to urge people to say, learn to time box those experiences. Don't linger on them for too long, because the mistake that we make is we get stuck on those. So what happens is we let our previous experiences hold us back, such that they rob us of our future. So instead of moving on and make peace with whatever situation that you went through that's unpleasant, whatever, because obvious things do happen, you then get stuck in that. That's when then that feeling pity, and people to pity you becomes a problem, because you're stuck in that and you don't realize that you're robbing yourself of so much more. You let your the future hold you back, giving, and that past can be people themselves. Because I always say, you know what, we give people power over us. It's as simple as that. We give people power over us by constantly letting the bad things that they've done to us, those bad experiences, hold us back by constantly, because in so doing, you're moving into the future when this person is not physically there. You bring that person. And I said this once to one of my PAs years back. You know, she was from a very very unpleasant environment. When I hired her, I said to her, look at this as a plain page, a white page. It's an opportunity. These people that you come in to work with here, they don't know anything about what you went through. They don't know the environment. This is a new environment. Don't bring the previous environment with you into this. Start afresh. But in most cases, we don't do that. It's a mind game.
Perfect.
It's a powerful, yeah.
Perfect. Great summary. I love it. Time box those setbacks. Don't let them fester for too long, because that, again, could potentially take you off your path for a time and not allow you to achieve those things that you could have achieved. So thank you, Edward, for taking time out, giving us all of this wonderful wisdom. You are a shining example of what you can do when you put your mind to it. Just like you said, our mind is our most powerful vessel. So we just have to put our mind to it, and we can achieve anything that we want to achieve. The word possible is in impossible. So we can definitely make this possible. So thank you again for joining me on the second episode of the Kime Zone. I even have gotten some new ideas and new things off of this session. So I'm so grateful for you imparting. And maybe next year we can come up with something else that you can sow some wonderful knowledge and wisdom into to those who view my YouTube channel and subscribe to it, so that we can keep these wonderful conversations like this going.
Thank you so much, Paula. It was nice, and thank you for the invite. I mean, I'm really honored to have the opportunity to just speak to you and your viewers. It doesn't happen often, so it's a privilege on its own. Yeah, so it was pleasant. It was nice to chat to you after we haven't seen each other. It's almost a year now, eh? Yeah.
I know.
Around the corner.
Yes.
But
yes.
It is good. Yeah, keep well, and thank you very much.
Thank you. You keep well as well.